That's right. It's a new show open. We keep it fresh. The Jeff Dubay podcast. They better hear us knocking. A wise man once said, if you can't make him see the light, make him feel the heat. That's what we're trying to do here on the Jeff Dubay podcast. I don't know who said that. I think, wasn't it the guy from Major League? Wasn't it the manager in Major League? the fat guy in the Indians? Seriously.
I don't think so.
Lou. Wasn't it Lou?
We'll go with it, though.
Major League line.
I thought it was a line from Major League. If you can't make him see the light, make him feel the heat. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just something I just made up because I'm damn wise. No, I ripped it off of something off Twitter. I'm sure I saw it on Twitter. Sam, that's Jason. Sam, thank you for bringing Jason to beer.
Sam.
He's really helpless and high maintenance. But
he
he is one of the members of today's, I'll say roundtable panel, whatever, just part of today's Jeff Dubay show, along with my buddy Ted Schwetzler.
You are getting better.
Oh, Schwetzler?
No, that was it.
Oh, then why'd you say better? I got it right.
Well, you go from no to got it.
Okay, well, then you should have said you got it. Ted Schwetzler, he was here a couple weeks ago. Great baseball mind, baseball coach. We're going to talk to World Series. He also covers the Gophers. He's also a baseball writer. Quick, give me your media outlets that where people can catch your stuff.
Just follow along at TLSCHWERZ. We'll get everything there.
That does make it a little easier.
Yeah, that works.
And for people who look for the podcast, I tell them, just go to my Twitter account. I mean, it's so
it
easy.
works.
I mean, iTunes, I heard, look at my father-in-law got the Philly. Did you get the Philly?
He did.
It's a nice call. Dude, you got a pretty cool father-in-law. I mean, you guys look like your brothers, for God's sake.
We try to be.
No,
we
seriously.
try to be.
Isn't that weird that that's his father-in-law? Would you say big brother to that? I mean,
Yeah,
Jason,
there's a resemblance.
I've got the balding going on at 24, though.
Yeah, that sucks. But you got married. You're smart. You got married, so you don't have to worry. There's Carissa. Carissa's here. Hi, Carissa. No, she's ignoring me.
She doesn't.
She's ignoring me. But no, I brought a date here Friday, and Carissa, I don't think approved. Because she kept sending her drinks back. she kept sending the cocktails back, and I think Carissa was starting to get a little annoyed with the whole.
No.
It is what it is. It was Friday or Saturday. I forget what the hell day it was. They all kind of blend together for me. But Ted covers the Gophers. Jason and I watch the Gophers. Do you want to say Jason? Jason Lindsay. Jason McGovern and I do not hang out ever.
Absolutely not.
But we were watching the Gophers Saturday. Jason, I assume you were too, McGovern.
I was working and watching at the same time.
All right, that's cool. At Moe's, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, I should mention that we are, what a scatterbrained open to the show. We are at Devil's Advocate, downtown Minneapolis, 10th and Marquette. Right between Marquette and Nicollet, right around the corner from the local, which I've decided to continue to use as a landmark, despite the fact that we're being paid by a rival bar. But you know what? The whole hospitality industry, completely incestuous. They don't hate one another. They love one another. They feed off one another.
Most of the time, yeah.
Seriously.
Well, the owners don't necessarily like each other, but everybody else is cool with each other.
Well, you would know. You're part of the industry.
And owners usually kind of hate each other, especially if they're within proximity.
My ex-wife was a cocktail waitress.
Yeah,
but that was the least
servers-
annoying of her two jobs. She was also a cheerleader coach, which drove me nuts, drove me out of my bleeping mind. But
no, there's a server's allegiance. I think we're all on the
you
same.
bounce around. I mean,
same boat.
I used to hang out with the Winners
crew.
crew, the old Winners crew, the Rieger boys, and Bone, and I mean, like Bone was a bartender, Martini, a guy named Martin who called him Martini, and then they'd pop up. You know these guys? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
They'd pop up at every bar. I mean, you'd walk into Bullwinkle's, they'd be there one night. You walk into Preston's, they're there one night. You come downtown at Brothers, and they're there one night. Whatever. I mean, it's incestuous. It is what it is. Not that I'm a barfly or anything. This is like 15 years ago.
Sure.
But anyway, Gophers escape. Let's talk a little college football to start this out, and I'll pimp Devil's Advocate accordingly as we move on. But Gophers got away with one. You and I were there, Jason, watching the game. Not there, but at a local establishment that will remain nameless for the sake of this show. And you called it at halftime.
I did.
That the 0-22 was going to come down, and I didn't see it. I was stunned to see the defense so leaky. I mean, we were watching 50, 60-yard runs, screens, draws, short passes, where you didn't see defense in the screen. You didn't see a maroon helmet in the screen. I mean, it was god-awful. It was god-awful.
Well, I based that prediction on your, a week before you deifying Tracy Claeys. I figured,
I did. I pretty much was building a monument to Tracy Claeys.
I was kind of doing it for you. I mean, I just got lucky, but it feels good to be prophetic.
I was going to say, you didn't see anything in that first half.
No, we saw nothing.
It was just fake.
No.
I was drinking beer.
And alcohol, that would help.
And Jeff wasn't, and I said, no.
I was eating pizza.
I said, I feel good about this. This is gonna happen.
Yeah, he did. But Ted, you were at the game.
And sitting in the press box, a lot of the comments, too, at halftime were, this coaching staff is shown that they can make adjustments. No, they haven't.
No.
They're 0-22.
Exactly.
There's nothing there that says we can make adjustments, especially on Jerry Kill. And I listened to your show last week when you talked about Claeys, and as much as I think, yes, he's gonna get a head coaching job somewhere down the line. I think.
Is anybody as hot in here, by the way? I mean, I'm just
a little warm.
A little bit.
I'm a whore in church right now. I mean, just look at me. It's just unbelievable. But anyway, continue.
I think that as much as it was Clay's, it was figuring out where they were getting beat, too. I mean, Purdue was just faster than us. I mean, Akeem Hunt and Anthrop were getting to the sidelines like crazy.
Yep,
and the Gophers' defense was not making tackles.
No.
They weren't cutting off lanes. It was just they were beating everybody to the spot, and they were tackling like they were the Vikings.
And they were
Arm
taking
tackles
bad
everywhere.
Angles. The secondary was taking horrible angles. It was just bizarre. Just horrible angles. And
starting the way they started, that made no sense. I mean, Cedric Thompson picked off the first pass of the game.
I know. And without the jump off sides, they have another one right after that.
It made no sense.
Other than that, you could tell they took the week off, kind of.
A little bit after Michigan and Northwestern. This was the spot on the schedule where you'd look and say letdown. It really was. Not to make excuses,
so
but
it's a trap game. You're saying, kind of.
Well, and not to jump ahead. I mean, and we're not ranked. I don't care that the coaches poll has us at 24. You're not ranked. Next week, you beat Illinois. Next week, you will be ranked.
Are you not ranked, though, because of the fashion in which you won last week, or should you be ranked?
You haven't played anybody. Your one loss, TCU, looks better now the way that they looked this week. You're not ranked yet.
Okay, you haven't beat anybody. Let's rephrase that. You've played somebody.
I think that it's a bit tough to say that this one was a trap game because now I think Illinois becomes the same thing. Iowa, even though Iowa is not great this year, you face them at home. And it's not so much about beating Iowa; it's about getting to Ohio State at 8-1.
Yeah.
You get to that game at 8-1. Wow, the Gophers team has three shots at finishing 9-3, which is better than last year.
Yeah.
And you're legitimate.
This Illinois game.
Sorry.
My bad. Go ahead.
Doesn't the first half this week, though, kind of assure that you don't do that again next week?
That's what I'm thinking.
Doesn't that teach you a lesson that you can't let down against a team
Would
that's
you put that
not as good
down,
as you?
by the way?
Sorry.
Down. I can't look at that Oregon. By the way, they look good this weekend in the old throwbacks. That's how they should look. That's how they should look. They wore. Did you see what Oregon wore?
They had a real jersey.
They wore what they wore like during the.
Do you know why we wore them?
Did you get sentimental for Achilles Smith?
No. Do you know why we wore them?
Do you remember Achilles Smith?
Oregon tangent quick. So it was a little bit of a throw into Washington's face. It was the 20th anniversary of the pick. Damon Heward threw an interception on the last play of the game to Kenny Wheaton.
The guy who's on ESPN now.
Yep.
The blonde guy who does the games. Not that I noticed how good he looked.
So Wheaton returned it for a touchdown. Washington was ranked number 9 in the nation. The Ducks beat him 20 years ago.
He's a great
So we wore the same.
We
wore the same jersey to say, "Ha, we kicked your ass 20 years ago."
Well, but they look good. They look good. I liked it,
and they did. And I didn't think that was going to happen, but it did.
Yeah, no, they looked. I mean, they stopped wearing stupid, metallic silver, and
we'll be back to it next week.
I know, I can't wait. But the Illinois. Here's why the Illinois game is tricky for me. I would think that it has your attention for two reasons. You sucked against Purdue, and you're on the road. I think it's hard to look past anybody when you're on the road. But you still do have.
But if you're gonna,
well, I mean, you do. Well, right on the horizon, you do have Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and it's hard not to look at that. I mean, that's. I'm not going to call that murderer's row, and I'll say right now, it's not nearly as good as I thought it was at the beginning of the year.
Wisconsin is more winnable this year than in the last 10. They don't have a quarterback.
They can't throw. They can't throw at all.
The Gophers have a better quarterback for the first time in how many years than Wisconsin does?
I'm telling you, Wisconsin cannot throw the football. I mean, Melvin Gordon is special. And I don't mean short bus special. I mean he is phenomenal. I mean he's really 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 good. I shouldn't have said that. I feel bad already.
I like it.
I feel like we're off to a flat start, so I'm trying to spike it a little bit. But the game against LSU, I watched. And see, it turns out LSU's not very good. But at the time, who knew? You're watching a season opening game, Wisconsin at LSU, in the South. I think it was in Texas, wasn't it? It was somewhere in the South.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't exactly. It wasn't like it was in Detroit or anything. It wasn't no backyard advantage for the Badgers. But they dominated that game. I mean, they had that game won. I mean, that game was over. And they let them get away. And LSU wound up winning the ball game. But I still thought to myself, I mean, how are people just because the Gophers were off to like a 3-0 start or something? Like how are 3-1 at the time? People were starting to talk about how Minnesota, like when they beat Michigan, the talk was, here's your pick in the West. I'm like, really? Because Wisconsin had LSU on the ropes. But then in the next couple of weeks, we find out that Wisconsin can't throw the ball at all. LSU's not a very good team. Are they even ranked anymore? LSU? I mean, they got their asses kicked at home by Mississippi State, and that might have taken them right out.
Yeah, I don't think that they are.
I mean, they're not a very good football team. So this stretch at the end of the season, not nearly as daunting as it once was. But I don't I don't think they can beat Ohio State or Nebraska, and I'm going to say that right now. I don't think they can win either of those games.
No.
You give me this Gopher team against Ohio State in Week 1, winnable game. Ohio State right now, not a chance.
Yeah, I mean
Ohio State.
You know what? They need to get
the
the quarterback.
Big Ten, Rutgers.
They need,
Really?
Yeah. Well, you know what? They needed to get some reps for that quarterback. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
I mean, when Braxton went down, they needed to get some reps for this guy. I mean, it's not like they recruit a bunch of stiffs at Ohio State, but you got to get your guys some reps.
Well, what happens then? Where do they land then if they lose to Ohio State and Nebraska? What bowl do they go to?
Suhan's pick was that they're going to wind up in Orlando, which is not a bad.
But that's still a New Year's Day bowl, right? Wasn't that what you were saying?
Yeah, and they can get to New Year's Day at 9-3.
That's
and
a 3 losses.
You could in either Orlando or Tampa. Those are both Florida New Year's bowls. I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to wind up in Florida in the first.
You almost have to look at that Wisconsin game is your bowl game because reality nobody cares about a meaningless bowl game.
No.
Look at that game as your.
Well, it depends who you're playing against.
Well, true, but that is your Big Ten defining moment. Jerry Kill, great. You beat Michigan at the Big House. I pat yourself on the back. It's tough to win in the Big House, but Michigan's bad.
They're terrible.
They're really bad this year. Wisconsin gives you a chance to win, and while they're not god-awful, they're god-awful at the quarterback position.
Yes.
Make that hurt, because you're not going to get that opportunity going down the road.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree with that. Now, but when you look at what it could potentially take to get to the Big Ten title game, it would have helped the Gophers had Nebraska lost at Northwestern. It would have helped a lot. Right now, you've got the Gophers with no losses. Nebraska has one. Northwestern has a couple. Who else has one in our division? There's another team that just has one loss in our division. Iowa. Iowa's only got one loss in our division.
But we have the tiebreaker over Northwestern.
I think we'll beat Iowa at home. I think Northwestern's going to fade a little bit. The team I'm looking at is Nebraska. If you are going to lose to Ohio State and Nebraska, which I think you are. I mean, it's not in stone. I mean, but if you lose to Ohio State and Nebraska, then you got to find a second loss for Nebraska. And I'm not sure what tiebreakers are. I mean, it used to be the highest BCS ranked team would go. There's no BCS anymore. But there used to be the highest in the BCS went to the Big Ten title game. It was just perverse.
I have to assume that because you are losing to Nebraska 2 year, I don't know what the tiebreakers either, but you can't lose to a team and be better than them.
Well, you would think. But I remember a few years ago, or a year or two ago, there was a weird situation where, going by tiebreakers, the highest team in the BCS was going to get to go to the Big Ten title game out of a division. It was. I don't remember all the circumstances, but now the BCS no longer exists, so clearly that's no longer a tiebreaker.
Well, and you got to think that head-to-head is one of the first tiebreakers, then, wouldn't you?
I would think it's got to be the first.
Yeah. That'd be the most sensible.
But I mean, it would be pretty cool to be in the Big Ten title game. But again, if you'd probably run in right back into Ohio State, which probably wouldn't be a whole hell of a lot of fun. And by the way, what happened to Iowa against Maryland? Isn't Maryland? I mean, Maryland's no good, are they? But Jay, you're over there, aren't you? You're still awake.
I'm here.
Tap him on the head once in a while.
Smack you every once in a while.
I'm here. Can we get past Illinois?
Well, yeah. I mean, I expect the Gophers to beat Illinois. And to be honest with you, you and I were texting about this the other day. I think they're going to beat them by 10. I don't think they're going to cruise, but I don't think they're going to sweat either.
Yeah, but what's the probability they beat Illinois and go 7-5?
No. You think
I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm just. I mean,
yeah, you are. You're very morose.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
You're
maybe
very
today.
Dark. You're very dark over there. But in all honesty, I can't see them taking that kind of a nosedive view. I mean, Ted, I don't think they can. I don't see that.
I don't see the way that.
I know the schedule's tough at the end.
The biggest thing about being at that game on Saturday, and I know it was homecoming, but the way that the bank responded. I mean, when the Gophers started to build momentum, that place was rocking. And I don't give them a shot in hell against Ohio State either. Mm-hmm. But you keep that game close at halftime, and that place is that packed and that loud, anything can happen. It's college football.
Yeah. I mean, things can get strange. And if you can run the ball well enough to control the clock, I mean, you shorten the game. If you're an underdog, it's the biggest key to pulling an upset. You run the ball, you shorten the game. The longer you stay in it, the more you start to believe, the more the other team starts to doubt. I mean, that's the formula, and the Gophers can do that.
To me,
typically.
you just touched on the biggest point that the Gophers have to focus on going forward the rest of the season. They play the underdog role very well. They need to learn to play the favorite role. When you're the favorite, you're favored by 14 points against Purdue, and you barely beat them.
Yeah.
You need to learn to put teams away.
Well, it's a whole different mentality that they're not used to.
You can't,
and that's coaching staff all the way
down.
Well,
if Cochran doesn't jump off sides and the second pick stands, I think that Gophers
it changes
42-3. Well, I really do.
And we were talking on Twitter during the game. There were two plays in the middle of that game that changed the momentum, and both of them were plays that the Gophers could do nothing about. They were both reviews, and both both replays were incredibly wrong.
Bizarre. Yes,
incredibly.
I mean, were you there when we saw the fumble, or did you show? No, you showed up at halftime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't think you saw the
I missed the whole first half.
fumble. Well, when did the fumble come? The pass that they called, an incomplete pass. Was that second quarter?
No, right before that, though, was Cobb's fumble.
4-yard line or whatever?
No, right before that, though, Cobb fumbled. The possession before that, Cobb fumbled. He was laying on the ground, and his elbow hit the ground. He was tackled.
Yep.
They ripped the ball out of his arm, and they somehow couldn't figure out that he was down.
Right.
And then the next possession, yes, on the 4-yard line,
catches
it, got blown up.
Yes.
And it should have.
On his third step, got blown up.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario should have been Gophers' ball in the 2.
Yes.
It should have been returned for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Instead, they blow it dead at the 50.
It was
should have been Gopher ball at the 2, and they say it wasn't a catch.
And then, but at a crucial point in the second half, they looked the other way when their puncher got
yes,
destroyed.
he did.
Yeah. Makeup call.
I mean, I've never seen a puncher take such a beating and not get a flag.
And there is, and they said he tipped
I think the
it.
guy. I think we actually beat up his mother in the stands. That was what was going on.
Very
and we still
well
didn't
could
get a
have.
flag. I mean, it was unbelievable.
They said he tipped that ball. I'm sorry, but there is no kid in
No.
college that's kicking a football 60 yards and getting it tipped.
No,
Not happening.
and they showed angles where it clearly was not.
Yeah,
but
not
I mean,
happening.
he just and the ref. I never saw. You know, when they're looking for the flag, I didn't see the ref giving the tip sign either.
No.
I think it was.
It was after we missed it. Oops.
I think it was one of those. You know, we've just done you sideways twice. We're gonna let this one go. I mean,
Yeah.
it was.
What if that would have ended up in an injury, though, to the punter, too, though? And they let that go. Doesn't that...
Well, you know what? If our kicker's not going to get injured on that 2-point conversion, their punter's got to tough it out on that. How about the 2-point? Now, I'll tell you this. I don't go for 2 ever unless it's the fourth quarter. I don't. I mean, I draw a line. If it is, I mean, points are points, and I take whatever points I can get until the fourth. Then I start looking at Bielema's chart. But in the third quarter, I go ahead and line up and kick it. But the fake wasn't the worst call in the world, and it appeared to be there. Now, I mean, if they would have lined up and gone for 2 out of the offensive set, I would have had a real problem with it. But you're trying to look trickeration. You're trying to catch them off guard. You're making them believe that, hey, it's the third quarter, we're going to take the points. And, I mean, there was a massive hole there. And, again, we saw, not to rip a kid who won the game with a 51-yard field goal, but we saw how unathletic kickers are. I mean, my God. I mean,
he's not even he's not your 5'10", 150-pound kicker.
He's got some height.
He's a big
Santoso
boy,
is 6'6", 250.
Is he 250? Jesus.
He's huge.
Well, that explains why he's so slow.
Yeah,
No, seriously,
but
he
he
did
got
not
taken
look good.
down. Like they breathed on him, and he fell over.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, he's
it
also
was-
not used to getting hit.
Well,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you'd almost think that if you're going to call that play, maybe we
Practice
would
it a
have
couple
tried
times?
it once or
Yeah.
twice, or you know how to carry a football because he
Or just
definitely
don't be
ran
such a
through.
girl.
The,
I mean, just go.
He ran through the line standing up.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
did. He really did. I mean, he was really upright. He really was.
You know when you carry a football, especially through a line, bend over.
Oh,
he
he
and
looked
push
like
something.
he looked like he was like a pre-med student playing powder puff. I mean,
Yeah,
it was ridiculous.
That was ugly.
it was really unusual.
I will say hindsight is 20/20, but that almost came back to bite us. I mean, there were 2 touchdowns
Yeah.
where
Oh,
we're
yeah.
down by 2
Absolutely.
points. He doesn't miss the extra point. We're not going for 2. It's a tie game.
His missed extra point after the penalty was pretty bizarre too, because he didn't
Three
kick it.
straight extra points. They called illegal formation.
I know it.
And
I know it.
random
Yeah, they
penalty.
had a side judge or a line judge or something with just a hard on for
Yeah.
for formations. I mean, it was. I mean, and I get it. It's 'cause when you do see teams line up for kicks, quite often the tackle will cheat a little bit off the line of scrimmage, especially with his outside foot. And they almost look like the Mighty Ducks flying V as they line up at the line of scrimmage. But I mean, you really got to be able to be throwing flags on
3 in a row.
on extra point attempts. It
Yeah.
was bizarre, but the fact that he came back and missed the one. The one he missed, he didn't even kick. He went up and kind of pooched it. It was like he just wanted to steer it through. It's like it was in his head that, oh damn, we better not screw this up now that we just had a penalty. What a shame it'd be to miss up an extra point after we had an illegal formation. I'm just going to go up there and just kind of just bump this through. I mean, he didn't really kick at it. Did you notice that? He just kind of went up there and just kind of pooched at it and knocked it right off the upright. It was not his strongest effort, but also and not that we're necessarily putting the Gophers to bed for the rest of the program, but college football just in general. I've always been, for some reason, I've always liked Florida State. I've always been a fan. I cannot stand how lucky they've gotten this year. It's starting to almost
That
piss
Notre
me
Dame.
off.
That was that.
It was
wait,
home. No,
they
were home.
played this week.
It was they
Yeah.
played Notre
That
Dame.
was the Notre Dame game. Okay, I was just making sure. I did watch that.
It was a
one.
home game. It was a home game. It was in Tallahassee. But
Yeah.
I mean, Clemson kicked their ass. If anybody watched that game, Clemson is 1,000 times better team than Florida State. I mean, they took
NC
them up.
State beat them for 3 quarters.
Yeah. I mean, this is and they did roar back in that one. But in the game where Jameis was sitting because of his profanity-laced, cafeteria tirade, whatever the fuck he was doing, Jameis sits that game, and he comes out to start that game, by the way, for the pregame warm-ups, dressed, and I mean, and like Jimbo Fisher, the head coach, he walks up, you can just see the look on his face, like, hey, he goes and nudges his assistant, goes, hey, what the fuck's Jameis doing out there? Seriously, I mean, he was just stunned, and he walked up to Jameis, he's got this look on his face, like, what are you doing? I mean, you're suspended. He's out there taking snaps and stuff in pregame warm-ups, and it's one thing if you're only suspended for the first half, which initially he was. But then the fact that he lied to investigators as they were getting the stories straight on what he did. I mean, he lied to the administrators who were investigating it. So they said, "Screw it, you're sitting the whole game." But Clemson, back on point. Clemson took them up and down the field and just destroyed them. I mean, again, without Jameis, there's an asterisk there, but there was zero doubt who the better team in that game was. I've never seen a team self-destruct more. I mean, Dabo Swinney, he's got to be on suicide watch all the time because his teams are always so good, so talented, and on the brink of greatness, and they always just give it to themselves up the rear. I mean, they are the most self-destructive college football team I've ever seen in my life. It's outrageous. I mean, they seriously, I've never seen a team. I mean, every year they do it. Every year they find a way to screw up a season in just unimaginable ways. And I know we're getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, but for Florida State to win that game, which was bizarre. I mean, Florida State's backup quarterback might be the worst quarterback in the history of college football. I mean, you're at Florida State. You're recruited by Jimbo Fisher. I mean, just the fact that you're backing up Jameis Winston does not mean you are, a backup by talent level. I mean, if you're a Florida State quarterback, you've got some talent. This guy is an idiot. This guy is. I can't think of his name, but he was. Did you watch the game? The Clemson game? This was about a month ago.
Yeah,
he was awful.
He
couldn't make a decision.
No, their offense was so different.
Oh, this is the kind of guy. I bet they make him wear his helmet as he walks down the hallway. I mean, he's that kind of guy. I mean, he is a mess. He is a freaking mess. But
short bus.
Yeah, well, again, I don't want to make fun of those who are less fortunate than you. They're on the same wavelength as me, but less fortunate than you.
Yeah.
But then they get to the Notre Dame game, and I'm sitting right. Yeah, it was Saturday. I was here because I was sitting right there watching the Notre Dame game, and I look up and I see with 5 seconds left. Anybody need anything?
I think we're good.
Oh, you know what? I'm not good. Can I get a
diet?
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Sam. Anybody else?
I'm okay.
I love that we can just do this on air. I love it.
Why not?
Seriously. But I look up and I see Notre Dame celebrating. I see a touchdown. I see a pass in the right flat. I see a touchdown in the closing seconds. And I see Notre Dame celebrating. I'm like, wow, what a win. I mean, they roll in to beat the number 2 team on their home field. I'm thinking, and I wasn't thinking Notre Dame was that good before Saturday. I thought, the game where they might get exposed. And they go down there and they give them hell. And then I look away thinking, okay, game's over. A minute later, I look up and Jameis Winston's hugging Jimbo Fisher. I'm like, well, what the hell happened? I mean, did they have Notre Dame in the points? I didn't understand what was going on. But they called a little pick on that, huh? A little offensive interference. And Florida State has 9 lives, and they've used 8.5 of them.
Now, I don't know college football rules as well as NFL, but how is it a pick if it's 1.5 yards off the line of scrimmage?
That was my problem, too. And you can see the wide receiver did not stick out his hands, it wasn't a pick. He ran a slant.
Yeah, he ran at the guy.
He ran into the corner, but it was within 5 yards. Maybe I'm wrong on the rules, but to me, that tough luck, No,
it looked like they got jobbed on the call.
Yeah,
it
was a touchdown, so we need to catch this.
There's been a lot of controversy about it. I mean, it's not
my struggle with them having 9 lives is who's going to take that last half of the one, because the ACC is garbage. They played nobody.
They're going to make the playoff. But this is where it's going to become tricky with the selection committee. In the past it was, in the BCS you had to be 1 or 2. If you're 1 or 2, you're in the game. There was no arguing or debating. They are not going to just take 1 through 4. There's a selection committee. I mean, it's like they don't take the top 34 ranked college basketball teams for the at-large bids or whatever. I mean, it's going to be open to debate. And if Notre Dame, if they win out and they are ranked like 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, I put them in. I don't care if they're on the top 4. They go. I mean, they
just
go.
Because they got jobbed in this game, or
well, for one thing, there will be 1-loss teams in it. I mean, there will be a number of 1-loss teams. There might not be.
I don't think anybody finishes undefeated.
Well,
Mississippi State.
Well, you just said Florida State.
Well, that's true. Okay, yep. So 1.
Yeah.
Mississippi State and Ole Miss play each other. I think the other one will lose somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
That takes.
Although the SEC is not as good as it has been.
No, but they still. I think one of them still plays Alabama and.
Ole Miss. I mean, Ole Miss has played them and beaten them.
Yeah.
So it might be Mississippi State.
But that leaves Florida State. I mean,
but my point is, if I look at Notre Dame, I see a 1-loss team where even if their only loss was, let's assume it's a completely legitimate loss, which it might be. I mean, again, this penalty is open to debate. But let's say that they're a one-loss team and their only loss is at Florida State. I'd put them in the top 4. And then if they got jobbed, I'd absolutely put them in the top 4. I might put them in the top 2 and give them well, you don't get home games, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be in the top 4 for me to say they belong. And right now, I think Notre Dame belongs. Of course, there's still a lot of football. I mean, that's the thing, too. People, after week 5, the BCS would come out, and people would just be it would be an uproar. People would just be so furious that, how could we be so low? How could we be this? It's like, we've got another 7 weeks of the BCS. Would you shut the hell up? I mean, and sure enough, I mean, everything would come out in the wash. I mean, they'd say, well, this team's too high. How are we behind them? And then they'd lose. It's like, well, why didn't you just shut up at the time and just let it happen? I mean, some people would bitch for no reason. And that's the same thing's going to happen, with this. Well, I'm sitting here already saying, God, you got to give Notre Dame a break, get them in there. I don't care what they're ranked, blah, blah, blah. But, there might be... At the end of the year, I don't think it's going to be that hard to pick 4 teams that belong. I really don't.
But are we going to be... I mean, I think with 64 teams in the NCAA, or 68 or whatever it is with the playing games, it's a lot easier to not care if 69 didn't make it, right. Screw them. But when you're down to this small of an amount of teams, I think there's going to be such an uproar in every college town that's close. There was bullshit. It's going to be so much that there was somebody messing with this.
Not as much as there was with the BCS.
Well, that's why there's no way to do this perfectly, I guess.
Right, and I think that's why it's subjective, because like you said, now you're talking about that 5th team that's not making it. Before you were talking about that 3rd team. So if you want to place weight on it, the 3rd team
which
probably
is why you need to add teams to the playoff, which
right.
makes this whole process easier, I think.
Not only that, but you were bound to the numbers when it came to the BCS.
Right.
You had no... you couldn't just sit there and say, well, you know what, this team's better. We're going to put them in. You can do that now. Yeah, and I think, at least I hope, they've got good enough football minds to get the right people in.
That is the only part of it that, and I don't want Oregon to be in that situation. I would love to see the Ducks be 1, 2, or 3. But where
are they now? And they got the 1 loss to Arizona, which is not as bad a loss as we thought.
No, they are the 3rd-ranked 1-loss team. They're 6th.
And Phil Knight's greasing palms.
Of course he is.
Bastard.
But the committee, why is Condoleezza Rice on a college football playoff committee?
Because she's a prominent African-American female, you idiot. I mean, hello. How was she Secretary of State? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're saying...
that's why she's on the football committee.
Right, but you're saying these people are great football minds.
How many people are on the committee?
I want to say it's 12 or something.
Oh,
it's a smaller number.
If she was on it and it was like 4, I'd be pissed.
I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure she's a pretty big sports mind. Like she's actually.
But you can't.
She's always on the sidelines of games.
Republicans dig football.
Yeah. Let's go with that.
That's true. I mean, you don't think that. You don't think on a Legion Field in Birmingham on a given Saturday is full of liberals, do you?
No.
Jesus Christ.
It's kind of a game of war, right?
I mean, that's
true.
Since we're still on college football, real quick, can I bring it back to Gophers for one thing? And I just want to say, right now, is this season a success? Can you already call the Gopher season a success for Kill?
No.
And then if not,
they played nobody.
Right, but I still think that we've seen things out of them that we like to see. So what does it take for this season to be a success? Does it take a New Year's Day Bowl? Does it take less, more, what?
That's such an ambiguous term. Call
the New Year's Day Bowl, you mean?
No, success.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
It really is.
What will he not get ripped for?
I can see progress. You can see progress. I mean,
we finished 8-4 last year.
Yeah.
I think
and then went belly up in the bowl against a shit
easy
Syracuse
to define is 9-3, right? But I think you can have success outside of 9-3 if you don't get blown out by Ohio State. You can lose to Ohio State. You can lose to Nebraska. Don't get killed. They're both on the road.
Games.
Yep. If you're going to play Wisconsin, I really think they need to win that game. That, to me, defines success. You win out and win to Ohio State and win Wisconsin, you're successful. But don't get blown out by those other two. Look like you belong there.
To me, get into a New Year's Bowl game. Playing January 1st in Florida, and at least have a reasonable representation. I know you'd be playing against a team from the SEC, so I'm not going to sit here and say you got to win. We couldn't beat Syracuse or Texas freaking Tech, all right? So I'm not going to sit here and say you got to go to January 1 Bowl and win. But play January 1st. Get to Orlando, get to Tampa, give the people someplace to go where they don't. And that's other than Houston or El Paso, for God's sake.
And that means beat Wisconsin, right? Because we don't get to New Year's Day without being 9-3.
They got to go 9-3.
Yeah.
You got to 9-3. But I mean, so we got one loss. Yeah, all right. Well, you have to beat either Nebraska or Wisconsin.
8-4.
Right, one of the two.
8-4 I think is acceptable as far as progress.
Yeah.
7-5's not.
No.
9-3 would be awesome. And they don't really have any control over what bowl they go to.
Go for
they
it.
can just have control over going to 9-3.
The thing is, Gopher fans see progress where I don't. I mean, they're just the demand is so. The standards are so low.
Yeah.
I mean, when Kill went 2-6
Yeah, but I
in his
think
first
it's
year and then
raising.
2-6 in his second year, and everybody was so happy because they won their shit non-conference games and went to a garbage bowl. Like, that's not progress. That's shit. That's garbage.
No, I was disappointed when
they
they
were 2-6
lost.
and they were 2-6. It's like people were just practically circle jerking over.
Their bowl
It's
game
like,
last year, who
it was
they
nothing.
play? I forget.
Syracuse.
Yeah, and they lost.
It was garbage.
And
Syracuse
my buddy is
stinks.
like, no, that's okay. They're in I'm like,
not.
dude, this isn't progress. This is crap. This
Yeah.
is shit. They need to beat this team and handily, by the way. I think
Syracuse is terrible.
I will give Kill credit this season, even though
This cheese sauce is phenomenal.
even though it is their
Man.
one loss. He should pat himself on the back for scheduling TCU because
Yeah.
we've not played
But he
anybody
did,
like
I
and
agree.
he was mad that they did. Kill was pissed.
Yes,
Was
okay,
he?
yes,
Kill was
that's true.
forced to do it.
Wait,
Yeah.
who was it that he canceled?
He canceled
USC.
North Carolina.
Yeah,
North Carolina.
And then
That would've been an easier game.
Noah Teague
Yeah.
went behind his back and scheduled TCU, and Kill was pissed, and he's still pissed. I mean, you could see him pouting on the sidelines.
Well, your
He's-
AD shouldn't
he's
go behind your
furious about
back,
it.
though, and do that,
Well,
should he?
you also shouldn't cancel North Carolina. You shouldn't be that big
Well,
of a
no.
pussy. I mean,
Right.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ, North
absolutely
Carolina's awful.
Yeah,
I mean, they're awful.
Yeah,
I mean,
It's not
if you think
basketball,
Phil
I thought.
Ford, James Worthy, and Michael Jordan are going to come out and school you, I mean, give me a break. It's just the cowardice in canceling North Carolina. It's just. Typically Northwestern. I don't know who they played this year. They had a couple of non-conference losses. They lost to Northern Illinois, and they lost to somebody else. But typically, I really admire Northwestern's non-conference schedule, not because it's super gutty, but it's just so outrageously shrewd. Because they play teams from major conferences that they should beat, so it looks good. I mean, like they'll schedule. Vanderbilt. I mean, they'll play Vanderbilt. It's like, gee, you're genius. We're playing, Southern Toledo,
Right. Yeah,
Sisters
yeah.
of the Poor,
Yeah.
and we win 42-3. Nobody
Yeah.
cares. You're playing a team from the Southeast Conference that you're gonna beat, and you're
Yeah.
gonna run them up and down the field. And then they'll play North Carolina State. It's like you're
Right.
brilliant. I mean, you're playing teams from BCS conferences that you're going to beat, and
Right.
that's how you. North Carolina, genius. Get rid of them. Idiots. I mean, that's perfect. That's who you want to play.
And they spent money to get rid of them, right?
Yes,
Right.
a ton of money, $800,000. or
Yeah,
something.
500, 800, yeah.
It's. I mean, it just to me. I mean, I have no problem with having a token MAC school. You always have to have a MAC school on your non-conference if you're a Big Ten team. Doesn't it? It almost seems like it's a law, especially if you're Michigan State. You got to play like every directional Michigan school there is. And Minnesota always has to get like a Miami or a Bowling Green or somebody. And I'm fine with that. And MAC schools, without exception, or at least rarely with exception, will typically pull an upset and beat a Big Ten team on a yearly basis. I mean, they're not pushovers. They're not a joke. I mean, Northern Illinois beat Northwestern this year.
Right.
So, I mean, it always seems to happen, or almost always seems to happen. So there's a reasonable, and you don't have to play four, of the Power 5 conferences. You don't have to play four teams, but play a couple of them. I mean, go back and look at Northwestern's schedule over the recent years, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, they have these Power 5 conference teams. They play like. They'll play like Colorado. I mean, you're going to kick the shit out of Colorado.
Right.
It's better than kicking the shit out of East Tennessee, Mountain Georgia State.
Right.
I mean, it's what the hell? I mean, it's just a better, more shrewd way to schedule, and it also gives you a better chance of getting, off the Big Ten Network one week and getting on ESPN or something, which is never a bad thing either. Even though the Big Ten Network, how. I mean, I have a hard-on for the Big Ten Network. I mean, they're in New York City. It's in D.C. It's in Philadelphia. It's in Chicago. It's in Detroit. It's in Minneapolis. It's everywhere. It's the best. It is by far and away the best network conference or conference network going. I mean, the Big Ten is going to print money forever and just urinate on all the other conferences and say, hey, SEC, enjoy Tuscaloosa and Gainesville as your TV markets. Go ahead and win national titles in football. I mean, we're cashing checks that you could only dream of, you toothless hillbilly idiots. But anyway.
Wow.
Back on point.
Wow.
Back on point. Let's get to a little bit of baseball. Ted, you were writing something today about Palmolive. Oh, of course. I will digress for a second here. I do forget to do this sometimes, radio formatics, but I don't know that it's really important in podcasting because nobody turns a podcast on in the middle. Does anybody ever turn a podcast out in the middle?
No, but I think it's still good to kind of just reset the old.
But see,
ambiance.
everybody who's listening to this
Maybe
podcast
not.
has been listening from the very beginning and knows exactly who we all are. 'Cause I mean, sometimes
true.
I get mad at
That's
myself.
true.
Like when you do a
I'm
radio
used
show.
to radio too, actually.
Yes,
That's where that's coming from.
I always have to. Like I've gotten to like the bottom of the hour. Right now we're 4 minutes past the bottom of the hour, and I think to myself, just so people know what we're talking about, it's time to say, hey, this is the Jeff Dubay podcast. We're live at Devil's Advocate. And of course, you want to mention the sponsor. And I'm with Ted, and I'm with Jason, and I'm with the other Jason. and we're just talking football. Just let people know what you're doing because you have to do that in radio. But in a podcast, everybody who's listening to me right now has been listening since the first minute, and they know exactly who we are and exactly what we've been talking about. I don't know that you have to reset shows. I don't know that you have to be Mr. Radio format.
I think we've reset this show for the last time.
We maybe have.
Made your point.
But I do want to mention, Devil's Advocate, 40 craft beers on tap. They basically have combed the country, and I don't want to say they've imported because these are domestics, but they have found the finest microbrews, here in the great United States of America. And they ship them in, and they make them available to you right here on 10th and Marquette, right between Marquette and Nicollet, and some of the finest looking waitresses I've ever seen in my life.
True that.
I'm so distracted.
As a beer aficionado,
unbelievable. They should put a cold shower in the back.
Seriously,
they really should. It's ridiculous. But anyway, continue, beer aficionado.
I'd go to a lot of bars.
Congratulations.
And
I thought he was going to end there. I thought that was
No,
it.
I'm not done. And I drink a lot of vodka and a lot of scotch and a lot of whatever. But I do drink a lot of beer, and this place is one of the best.
Yeah,
I mean you like it because of the style. I like just how it's
old school
pub style.
It's an old school. The atmosphere is awesome, but the beer selection is about as good as you can get.
You see Tony behind the bar. I don't know the guy without tattoos. He's like the highly touted bartender, but the guy without the tattoos, Tony at the far end.
Yeah.
He's coming on the show here in the next couple weeks because he's a basketball genius. He's a basketball guru.
Nice.
He's got a scouting service. I mean, he knows the recruits and who's going where. It's got to have a touch of sleazy expose to it too, because he's going to come on and tell you about the AAU system and how screwed up it is, and how the coaches don't have the kids' best interest in mind when they steer them to certain schools because there are certain benefits waiting for the coaches. And I mean, he's going to shine a light on the sleazy underbelly of AAU basketball and amateur basketball in the state, not just this state, but nationwide.
Wow.
But I mean, he's got his finger on the pulse. I mean, I sat and talked to him the other day for about an hour. And he comes from Bismarck, but he came here to, because he have his finger on the pulse of the local basketball scene. And I mean, he's kind of like a poor man's Henry Lake, but he's on his way to becoming like a legit Henry Lake. And I'm dead serious about it. And Henry's one of my best friends. I mean, I love Henry. And this is, how Henry was like. He didn't just sit around and watch NBA. I mean, do you know Henry Lake?
I've never met him, but I've heard of him.
H. Lake.
I mean,
he's just all about, He like when a ninth grader has got to kill a crossover, he knows about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that was H. Lake, and that's Tony as well.
Speaking of him, he's down in Kansas City. So
he's loving life.
He's talking Royals, right? I mean,
so is my de facto best man for my wedding, Ryan Lefevre. He's the play-by-play voice of the Kansas City Royals.
Really?
And I say de facto best man because PA was my best man, but he had to leave before the toast because he had to get on a plane to get to the Vikings road game.
Priorities.
So Lefevre gave the toast because he was like the number 2 in line.
Okay, yeah.
But so anyway,
was that in the plan, or did he have to just come up with that on the fly?
What's that?
Was that in the plan that
it was planned.
that PA was going to have to leave? Okay.
Yeah, it was planned. Yeah,
Okay.
he was going to be there for the ceremony, and he was going to have to leave before the
speech,
the reception, because he had to the Vikings are on the road that week. I didn't plan it that well. But it's the whole thing. It's just a day that will live in infamy to begin with. Anyway, we don't need to go down that road.
Speaking of Royals,
let's talk. No. Before we get to the World Series, you were writing today about Molitor, and then there's a lot of talk too. He's getting his second interview with Ryan.
So my take on it, my spin on that. So first off, it's starting to be reported that Molitor is already in on the job now, because the World Series are going on. There's certain days of the week that you are able to break information for Major League Baseball. You have to go through processes. I believe Thursday is the first day you can report on anything. So if they wanted to bring him on today, they couldn't say anything about it till Thursday. My problem is you brought Molitor in, I think it was 3-4 years ago, as a coach, infield coach, designated hitter coach. You did that because you want to integrate him into the system. You want to integrate him into the organization. You didn't want other people to start to gravitate towards him because you believed that he was the next best option. I'm okay with that.
Manager in waiting. Almost,
yes, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I understand that you can promote from within and do the right thing. I get that that's not a popular thing for Twins fans, but to say we're going to have this and to go on record and
who do
say
they want?
We're going to have this exhaustive search and blah, 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 just to make it look like you didn't hire from within, own that.
Well,
say right away.
Don't be such a coward.
Yeah, say Molitor's our man, and I don't care.
Yep.
Why does it matter?
Well, doesn't that show that they're not as confident in him as you would like?
It almost shows I don't think that, but it shows that, we've heard our season ticket holders hate that we only promote from within, so we need to make it seem like we care about it. That's fine, I get that.
I think they legitimately. I think that Mikheyevich has gotten serious consideration.
But
I don't think that's.
I don't know about some of those other ones. DeMauro Hale, Chip, Joe McEwing, Sandy Alamarchi. How many of those are names?
There can be reasons for some of this stuff too. And I'm not going to say specifically that there is an ulterior motive or that these things are going on, but and I know that it's hard to draw parallels from sport to sport, but I've told you about the Pete Bursich interview with Bill Belichick, right?
Yep.
I mean, I do believe that sometimes organizations in any sport will invite somebody in for an interview to pick his brain and just kind of get an idea of the inner workings of an organization. Just maybe just to find out more about that guy specifically, even if he's not on your short list of managerial candidates, you might want to just have a background on that guy specifically. I mean, for those who don't know of what I speak, after Tice was let go, that would have left. How could I just say that?
Childress.
No, the guy I'm just talking about.
Bursich.
Bursich. Well, Pete Bursich unemployed at the time. Boy, did I just blank on that. And Bursich got called into New England to interview. I don't remember if it was a special teams coach or linebackers coach, one of the two, but with Belichick. And basically, he got into the room, and Belichick sat there and grilled him about what kind of a guy is Randy Moss. That's all he wanted to know was he wanted Randy Moss character references because he was trying to trade for him or was considering trading for him. And Bursich gave him a glowing recommendation. They went and made the deal, and he's had 30 frickin' touchdowns.
And that's the only reason that I'm not.
I mean, there are reasons for doing these things.
Right. I have the stance that if Molitor was your guy, own it. But I get also interviewing other people because I'm okay with that too. The Twins have shortcomings. The Twins aren't in on analytics. I'm not huge on analytics, but a lot of teams are. They aren't in on analytics. They have shortcomings.
I think people.
Yeah, you and I are
sabermetrics.
We're on the same page.
I can't stand. But I really get. I mean, as somebody who loves the art of the game as you do, I get so annoyed with somebody who can't sit down, watch a game, and tell me if somebody's worth a shit.
Right, you need to look at it on paper.
I can sit there and watch a guy throw it. I can tell you if he can get big league hitters out. I don't need to get a statistical analysis of him. I can see and analyze and think for myself, as you do as well. And I really get sick of people who have to rely on numbers to analyze.
Yep. And
go be a stockbroker. Go be an actuary.
That part is the only part that I'm okay with. If that's why they brought in other candidates to find out how other organizations do things. Mm-hmm. What would you bring in? What would you do? That's fine. I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. But then you need to have some sort of glowing, when you introduce Molitor as your manager, we believed he was a man all along. We brought him in for this reason. Say something like that. Because the exhaustive and...
Doesn't that piss off the season ticket holder? You were just saying, though, is pissed about promoting from within?
Transparent. I mean, you got to go through the motions to an extent. Well, and I do believe... I don't think that the day Gardenhire was let go, I don't believe that it was Molitor's job.
I don't think so either.
It seems like Gardy thought so.
I think he had the favorite.
Track,
or the,
for sure.
But I'm sure Gardy felt that when he was brought in.
A lot of people really, really, really like Mankiewicz as a manager. And we were talking about this with Suhan. And Suhan pointed out the irony that, Mankiewicz was like the guy who was just butting heads with TK all the time. He and TK just did not see eye to eye. They didn't get along. He didn't like his managing style. TK was a real hard ass with him. And now that in the minor leagues, Mankiewicz is that kind of manager. He's just a hard ass. He's just great. I mean, he's just not a player's manager. He's just not. He's somebody who rides his guys hard, and but he's somebody who's got a ton of respect, not just organizationally, but in baseball circles. He's got a ton of respect, and the reason I thought there's some intrigue with him is that he would be able to come up here. Like if he got the job, he'd be coming up here to manage guys that he just managed in the minor leagues, and that is basically how things turned over for the Twins in the late '80s with Tom Kelly. Yep. When he came up here and coached or managed Herbeck, Gaetti, Puckett, Bernansky. Bernansky came here from the Angels, but Bush, the Laudner, the whole crew that came up together, Viola in the minor league system, and that was certainly a nice formula. 30 years ago or 25 years ago? But
who do you prefer out of the two?
Well, I think Molitor's the safe guy, and I think Molitor. I think Jim made a really good point last Monday on this show too, and he said, "This is the one chance you have to hire Molitor. You'll have other chances down the road to hire Mankiewicz. Mankiewicz is younger. He's in your system. You pass up on Molitor here, he's going to go somewhere and be a manager. I mean,
if you pass up on Mankiewicz and he gets another managing job,
it could happen.
You never see him again. But I guess you don't sit here and make decisions based on Mankiewicz alone.
I don't think major league teams are yet banging down Mankiewicz's door.
No,
I think he's making a nice reputation for himself. He's making a nice reputation for himself in the league. But Ted's married. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand. And you're not going to ever meet a guy more in love with his wife than this guy. I'm not.
God,
I'm
that's
not,
annoying.
It is. It sucks. It's just nauseating. I mean, it's like his tweets and everything. He's just. I mean, he is like the ideal husband. I mean, you just. It is gross. It's disgusting.
I'm going to throw up.
It's disgusting.
In fact,
he's like
he's
got like the nicest son-in-law. And I mean, you see the stuff he writes about your
dad-in-law.
daughter.
That doesn't tell you something.
Well,
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, he did, but in all honesty, I mean, the man. I would call you whipped, but you're not whipped because you're married. You can't be whipped and married, can you? But I mean,
I think you can.
The point is, he comes in here he's got blinders. He doesn't see what's walking around and messing with me. As I say that, dude walks by, tattooed dude walks right by. But I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Well, something tells me, Jeff, you could be married and you might still get distracted. But anyway.
You think so? Yeah, I was a faithful husband. I was a faithful husband. But what were we talking?
I'm good.
I'm good too. What were we talking about again? I can't do it. I can't do it. It's so distracting. It's just outrageous. Well,
We need a camera.
I mean, Sean, I'm not trying to be sexist, but they've got the most gorgeous wait staff here, and I can't hardly concentrate on the show.
Hard what?
Shut up. I mean, it's so difficult. It's so incredibly difficult. I've got to.
So how about them Royals?
Someone's got to reel me in. Yeah.
How about those
All right,
Royals?
so, anyways, are we to the point where we're done? Is it Molitor? I mean, I think it is.
I think so too. I'm with you in that I don't think that they're going to lose out on Doug, and if it doesn't work out with Paul, he's probably your contingency plan.
Yep.
But
Hi, Steve. That's an inside joke. His name's Scott. It's a little extra.
I think wherever you go with it at this point, let's kind of make a decision. You got it down to really three guys. Molitor's coming in for a second interview. I don't think we've heard anything on Lovelo as coming in for a second
And
interview.
Molitor is a baseball genius. I mean, he's something else. I mean, he spent last year as the traveling, the roving instructor, minor league instructor. And basically, we had him on the show on a weekly basis over at 1500. And he basically is down there telling people, he teaches people how to take a lead, how to steal a base, how to read a pitcher. I mean, he has kind of, in terms of baseball fundamentals, like what Jerry Kill is to football fundamentals. Like Jerry Kill will take, whatever kind of player he can get his hands on and just teach him how to block and how to tackle. Molitor will go to the minor leagues and he will teach a guy how to take a proper lead, how to get a good jump, how to run bases, how to read a ball in the gap and go halfway and be able to get back or tag up and do this and do that. I mean, just basic fundamentals that you'd be surprised how many people just don't have a grasp on.
Things that win you baseball games, though.
I mean, he's a genius. He's an absolute. I mean, he knows every element of the sport that exists. You can't have a more thorough knowledge of baseball than Paul Molitor, and you can't be a better guy than Paul Molitor either. I'll tell you this, and I hope I'm not violating any trust here, but when I got arrested, the next morning I get out of jail, and I've got some voicemails and some text messages. The first voicemail I had was from Paul Molitor. He wanted to see if I was okay. I mean, that's the kind of guy we're talking about. I know. That's the kind of guy we're talking about. But anyway.
Well, but don't great players have a really bad track record as managers, though?
Yep, and that's another.
And is there anything to that, do you think?
Well, because, we talked about this also with Jim. We're going to give Jim a lot of credits on this show. But, there was a time when it was the guys like Tom Kelly who made good managers because they weren't good players and they had to know the game. They had to know all the little ins and outs of the game. Because they had no choice or no chance if they didn't. I mean, they couldn't get by in athletic ability. Tom Kelly was never going to be a world-class athlete. He'll be the first to tell you. So he had to know, he had to read pitchers. He had to know the game inside and out to be good. But that's changing. I mean, a guy like Molitor is a baseball genius. I mean, I don't know if Mark McGwire was or was not a good hitting coach. Is he still a hitting coach in the majors?
I think he's the Cards hitting coach.
When he got hired, initially he was the Cards hitting coach. Yeah. I thought he went somewhere else after
I thought he did too.
But when he got hired as the Cardinals hitting coach, I'm thinking, well, what's he going to teach him? The needle goes here, and then I mean, seriously.
But I think that's the point of it.
Weight room's over there.
Here's the buyer.
I think that's the point of it is what kind of good player you are. Molitor was a good player who worked his ass off to be a good player.
Yeah.
You're talking about McGwire, he used steroids. It came easy to him.
He turned himself into a gorilla and hit the ball a mile.
Derek Jeter.
And then one of the Simpsons said, "Who wants to see some dingers?" Remember that?
Derek Jeter would probably...
You remember McGwire on The Simpsons?
Come on. Never watched it.
And he's with the Dodgers.
He knocked down the satellite that was spying on the fans and reading their brainwave.
I know In Your Face Milwaukee. That's about it.
All right, I thought you were a bigger Simpsons guy.
I think, like a guy like Derek Jeter, he's had that athletic ability, world-class ability his whole career.
But it's still fundamentally sound.
Right, it is, but he hasn't had to necessarily work at it like a guy that maybe had to. So how do you give that to... I think it's characteristic.
That's why I think that Molitor spent so much time with Buxton since he's been drafted.
Right.
Because there's years... This Buxton, I know he's been a little slowed by a couple of injuries, before the injuries, and maybe still, I mean, people were talking about that this guy was going to be the best athlete in Major League Baseball. I mean, the best pure athlete in the game. You know, him and a guy like McCutcheon, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, you get Molitor down there, and you get him to learn every element of the game from a great baseball mind like that. And now you've got yourself a really, really complete player, at least in theory. We've got 10 minutes left in the show, so we're going to try to turn into a little corner here to get into some World Series talk. As I mentioned, it's 10 minutes to the top of the hour. We're at Devil's Advocate. It is the Jeff Dubay Show. Devil's Advocate, the home of 40 craft brews and a fantastic menu, Atlantic Fare. And I will point out that we've got a second show tonight. Are we going to be live, or is it just going to be podcastable?
We can still do it live.
No, we're going to be live.
Well, it'll depend on internet, actually.
Well, we think it'll be live, but if not, you can catch. Typically, we do Wild Wednesday on Wednesday. That's why we call it Wild Wednesday. That's a pretty genius concept, yeah. But tonight is a very special Wild Wednesday, and it's not because Blossom gets her first period. It's because we're going to be live and in person with Thomas Vanek at Fan HQ. On a Tuesday. It's a Wild Wednesday on a Tuesday. Don't you remember all those promos? A very special Blossom on NBC. It's a very special Blossom. I mean, seriously, every week was a special Blossom. It's like, fuck Blossom.
You're dating yourself.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway.
But anyway, now she's on Big Bang Theory. Same chick. Believe it. Yeah,
sure.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that is?
Yeah, she still hasn't had her first period. But anyway, I digress.
Or nobody cares.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's terrible. Well, yeah, you're right. She's not. Who's it that grew up to be hot? Oh, Punky Brewster grew up to be hot.
She did?
Oh, yeah, and
Oh,
trashy,
yeah.
too. Like
Really?
pornos. Yeah.
Super hot.
Like,
Yeah, super hot and super
like
trashy.
adult films?
Yeah.
And I don't know who she is?
She's been naked in many mediums.
Oh.
Punky Brewster?
Send me the link.
No, she's hot. She's
Google.
I can't think of her name. But anyway, I digress one more time.
Soleil Moon Fry.
There you go. I think that is it.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. Boy. Anyway, back on point. 9 minutes to go on the show. The Royals are on a bizarre run. I mean, an amazing run. I mean, playing way above their heads. I mean, I love it. I've been pulling for them. I think it's great. They're not that good. I mean, they're good. They're not as good as they look. Nobody in the history of baseball, the 1927 Yankees weren't this good. I mean, nobody wins 11, 12, whatever, straight postseason games. But I think here's where they benefited, is they came in with no postseason experience. And the teams that win in the postseason are the teams that treat it like the regular season. Teams absolutely mind bleep themselves when they get to the playoffs. They think, "Oh God, it's the playoffs. It's time to ramp it up and get going." No, it's
Gear
not.
down, yeah.
It's a time to pretend it's June and just play like it's June. And don't manage any differently. Don't play any differently. Do nothing differently. The teams that treat the postseason like the regular season are the teams that have success. And the Royals have been so loose and so just. I mean, that's the best way I can describe them, is loose. I mean, you can tell there's an excitement level that goes beyond what you have in June. I mean, when they win games, they're pretty fired up about it. And that you can't help that. I mean, there's going to be some exuberance, especially when they have won as many in dramatic fashion as they have. But they've been loose. They haven't let the moment get to them. Here's my concern. When you see crazy runs in baseball, whether it's the regular season or the postseason, when you lose a game, it could unravel so fast. I mean, if you lose one game, you might not win again.
Are you saying the streak might be hurting them?
It got them where they are. But if they lose game one or game two, and especially at home, and let's say especially in disappointing fashion, like a late inning collapse or something, I don't know that don't be surprised if they just. I don't. It's just like the spill is broken. I can't. There's just no other way to put it. I mean, baseball evens things out. That's why they play, a 7-month season and 162 games. I mean, it's because baseball will eventually even everything out. It's just how it is. And
So you're saying they could unravel pretty fast?
if they lose a game, I'm not ballsy enough to predict that if Kansas City loses a game, they're done. But I'm just telling people, be on the lookout. If they drop a game, I mean, you've seen it, Ted. If they drop a game, they might not react very well to it, and it could get ugly. That's my opinion.
I think tonight sets. I picked the Royals 4-2. I think tonight, though,
that's just right in my face.
But I think tonight,
Shields is
backed off of
Shields
it.
is a bulldog.
But his postseason numbers haven't been great.
No,
he's got an over 5 ERA in the postseason. That's why I think tonight kind of sets the tone. Something's got to break because Shields has been in the postseason. He's got an ERA above 5.
Yep.
Mad Bum hasn't given up a run in 23 innings on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Something is going to happen. If the Royals are going to win, Shields is not going to pitch to a 5 ERA tonight.
When Shields made a believer out of me. Number one, he had a lot of really good games, really important big games. He was in Tampa that we can't forget. But you go back to the one-game playoff this year, the wild card game, and the Royals had fallen behind early, and then they came back, and I think they were up like 4-2. and he goes out for like the fourth inning, and he's been laboring, and he goes 3-0. I mean, they had just basically rallied to go ahead 4-0, and he goes out to start the fourth or whatever. And you're hoping you can get. I mean, this guy's kind of your ace. He's kind of your bulldog. He's kind of the guy you want to be your bell cow and follow him. And you want to get him at least to the 6th, 7th, 8th inning. And he's out there in the 4th, and he goes out after you just took the lead, and he goes 3-0 to the first hitter. And then he comes back and gets him and gets the next two guys on like 3 pitches. And I thought, okay, stones. I mean, the guy's got stone. And he threw a couple of just nasty darting two-seamers that he just was not afraid. I mean, he knew he could throw them for strikes. And he made pitchers pitches, like a 3-1, 3-2. He was not serving up cookies at all, hoping somebody hit an atom ball. I mean, he was making his pitch and putting it where he wanted to. And when he came all the way back to get the guy from 3-0, the next two guys didn't have a prayer.
No.
And I mean, I love guys like that.
The best prayer they had was Ned Yost. I mean, he pulled him out of a game in a situation that made absolutely no sense. And Shields let him know that when he got pulled out of the game. He was looking at him like, what are you doing?
When they brought in that rookie lefty that they just drafted? Because they've gotten good run out of him.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to ask out of a kid
he played in the College World Series less than 6 months ago, and now he's pitching in the World Series.
He's good. But I mean, Jesus, they're asking a lot out of him.
Yep.
Well, doesn't this come down to Royals bullpen versus San Francisco?
And that's why I have them at 4-2, because if you're not beating the Royals in the 6th inning, or 7th inning, sorry, you're not winning.
Sure.
I mean, you're not scoring off Herrera, Wade Davis, and Holland. It's not happening. They faced 102 hitters and given up 5 hits. That's ridiculous.
They are shut down.
I tell you what, you want one thing you are getting here are 2 of the best stadiums in baseball, 2 of the best ballparks in the game.
I was going to say, we had this conversation
Fantastic.
Saturday. I've been to 2 stadiums besides Target Field, Kauffman Field, and what do they play in San Francisco? I don't even know what it's called.
Camden Yards.
And I was there.
Sorry, AT&T.
San Francisco.
Orioles.
Yeah.
I was Kauffman Field like 2011, watched the Twins get drilled. And I was out in.
At least you didn't get shot from the
highway. I was out in San Francisco.
Remember that?
I was out
from the highway, just
Jesus,
pumping
yeah.
shotguns into the upper deck.
That could have happened. I was there. I drank a lot that weekend.
Okay, well,
but I was out in San Francisco when Barry Bonds hit 7:15, complete fluke. Got a ticket last minute.
Wow.
And was there when he.
Cheater.
That's the one that
cheater. You should yell cheater.
Well, you know what? I was with a fan because he had.
They loved him. They were so
and
along
I asked
for the
that
ride.
question. This is 2006. I said, "Hey, listen, do you guys like this guy?"
Yeah,
this is right when he's the height of D-Bag Central.
But they loved him.
And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Okay, well then I'm gonna cheer when he hits 7:15 because he's gonna his third at bat." Prophetic again, right? He did. Third at bat.
You might be a witch.
Third at bat. It goes down the stands. That's the guy walking to get a beer. Steps on it. Do you remember that story? But anyway,
okay.
I watched that.
That is something. But I always thought it was really. I don't know. I don't know if curious is the right word, but it was always bothered me how Giants fans were willing to look the other way on somebody who was so blatantly cheating.
I agree.
It is what it is.
I cheered for him.
Well, I mean,
One time.
My favorite was him being all self-righteous when he hits the record-setting home runs, and the Hall of Fame asks for his batting glove, his helmet, and his spikes to make a little, to put in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And he acted all self-righteous, saying, "Oh no, I'm not sending you anything. You guys have been accusing me, and I didn't. I've been having to deflect and defend." When in reality, he didn't. He refused to send them because they were all 3 sizes larger than his rookie season. Your head. I got news for you. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. You're from the time you're 21 to the time you're 40, your head does not grow. No. Nor do your feet. His went 3 effing sizes. All right. He knew if he gave those up, he was screwed. And he took this self-righteous.
But you could just look at him.
He's
early career too, and know that.
I mean, his. I mean, he did time for perjury, did he not? I mean,
he did not.
He was found guilty of it.
Yeah, I think, but he never did time. I think he was house arrest or something.
I mean, it's the most blatant cheating that the game has probably ever seen. It was just nauseating to see that.
We probably don't have time for it, but did his son ever become a player? Because during that game that I was at in 2006, his son was out there during batting practice, 14, 15 years old. That's like he'd bring his son out there for batting practice, but I didn't know if he ever became a. That was 10 years ago, or 8 years ago.
I would assume his son wasn't roided up at 15. At least I would hope.
Not yet. He didn't look like it.
I would hope not. But that's going to do it for us. Ted, thanks for coming again. And we're going to get you on again. I like having you out here. We've got about a minute to go, so I want to say thanks to the folks here at Devil's Advocate. And remind folks, if you're listening to us live now, or hell, if you're listening to the podcast version, 2 days from now, there's another show coming right up. It's a Wild Wednesday, a very special Wild Wednesday, on a Tuesday where Blossom gets her first period. But we'll be live at Fan HQ, Ridgedale Mall. And Sean looks not happy, does he? Very disapproving. But we'll be at Fan HQ, Ridgedale Mall. Thomas Vanek will be our live guest. Scott Schweitz will be there. Tony Dean is off this week. He'll be back next week. But we will have and Jason McGovern. So we'll have 3/4 of the regular Wild Wednesday crew on hand. Thomas Vanek live. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks to Jason and Ted for coming out. And thanks to Sean, and thanks for Sam for just distracting the hell out of me.
Yeah, way to go, Sam.
Sam is a female, by the way. Let's just be clear on this.
For clarifying.
Sam is very much a female, and there's just no doubt to her gender. Let's just put it that way. But that's going to do it. We will be back in about an hour. Jesus, in an hour with Wild Wednesday.
We got to run.
And we got to go. We
Literally.
got to go. We got to get to Ridgedale.